At this point, I'm just hoping they find Tamara one of these days. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Today I'm going to be ranking the 3 movies in the Strangers franchise as part of my franchise Rankography series. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content, like reviews, ranked lists, and trailer reactions. So what is a Rankography exactly? Well, it's my ranking of a filmography, whether that be a director's output, an actor's appearances, or even an entire franchise. My rankographies are based on personal preference, and I rank movies according to how much I enjoyed them, rather than any specific technical merit or attribute. Remember, this is just my ranking, not the ranking, so be sure to post your own personal ranking of the Strangers franchise in the comments below. There are some franchises that really should have never become franchises. They should have stayed just a single one-and-done movie. I'm sure this case could be made for a lot of franchises, especially within the horror genre, but this particular film franchise is, pardon the pun, one of the strangest examples of this. We've got an original film that was underappreciated on initial release but grew to be a sleeper hit and now a bit of a cult favorite. Then we've got a name-alone sequel that came 10 years later and goes in a completely different direction than its predecessor. And now we've got a bizarre rebooted remake of the original another 6 years later, with 2 more chapters filmed and on the way. A strange franchise indeed. Well, at least it makes this an easy one to rank. For now. I've already reviewed all 3 of these movies on this channel, so if you want to check those out for some more in-depth thoughts on each of them, I'll put the links in the description below, and also link them up in the cards as we go along. Alright, let's get this rankography started. Coming in at number 3, The Strangers, Chapter 1. Well, I have a feeling that this placement isn't going to surprise anybody. Say what you will about the original movie or the sequel. Love them or hate them, but no matter what, they will absolutely always come out on top of this film. This is just a strange movie on so many levels. Chapter 1 is the unclearly defined start of a trilogy of movies that were, unfortunately for us, filmed concurrently. It's not a sequel, it's not a prequel, it's sort of a rehashed reboot, a remake, some sort of monstrous reboot make. It does change a few superficial things about the original film, so it's not a shot-for-shot facsimile, but it does replicate all the plot beats in basically the same exact order. There's far more deja vu with this film than a typical remake, and unfortunately, a lot more disappointment too. This film was able to replicate the basic story, but for whatever reason, it was unable to replicate the tension. There's no suspense here, no dread, just a boring movie that loses the sense of realism and the "this could really happen" quality of the original film. What it doesn't lose, however, are the dumb characters. Although the original film's characters felt like they could be real people, they still did a lot of stupid stuff and made some very poor choices. But this newest installment ramps up that idiocy tenfold. These characters have absolutely no sense of self-preservation. They don't feel like real people, so they have unconvincing reactions to everything that happens to them. Either having essentially no response to somebody coming through a door with an axe, or having an excessive response to something minimal. They're super loud when they need to be quiet. They're constantly dropping their guard and weapons in order to comfort each other when they're still very clearly in danger. They miss every blatant opportunity to escape or kill their attackers. These are some of the dumbest horror movie characters I've seen in a long time, and it makes you genuinely not care about them at all. In fact, you almost want to root for the strangers, if they weren't also so dumb. Hopefully the upcoming sequels can somehow recontextualize this movie and make it slightly more worthwhile, but as it stands, this is an awful film that really can't justify its own existence. Coming in at number 2, The Strangers, Pray at Night. It's wild how this movie almost seems good after having seen the newest installment. Maybe that was the plan all along. But no, we can't be tricked. This one is still not good. Just not quite as bad as Chapter 1. Apart from the masked trio of blade-wielding psychopaths, there's nothing that this film has in common with the original movie. It's really a sequel in name alone, and I'll admit that I probably would have been slightly more forgiving of it if it had just tried to stand alone as its own thing, but as a sequel to The Strangers, it's a massive disappointment. This film drops the home invasion thriller aspect of the original, and all of the suspense that came along with it, instead opting for a much more generic slasher approach. Definitely an odd decision that shows a severe lack of understanding of what made the first film work so well. Like all of the movies in this franchise, the characters here are rough. Until the newest installment, I would have said you'd be hard-pressed to find modern horror movie characters who made dumber decisions, but of course, I have since been proven wrong on that thanks to Chapter 1. Still, the characters are pretty dumb here, and often feel like they're self-sabotaging. They have so many chances to escape, to survive, to fight their attackers, and instead they opt to run, scream, and beg over and over again. Things improve a bit during the third act, but these characters don't feel like real people or a real family, and the plot here doesn't feel like a believable scenario anymore. For some inexplicable reason, this movie leans extraordinarily hard into 80s nostalgia. The movie's set in modern times, but you'd never guess it with the constant 80s pop hits blasting, all the slasher movie references, the synthy score, the very frequent use of slow zooms. It's really just a big homage fest without an identity of its own. At least it's an homage fest with some nice cinematography and a handful of memorable set pieces. So that means my number one Strangers film is The Strangers. Whew, it's not often that I rank a franchise where I only like one movie. I'm just glad we have this one. The Strangers is an interesting case, because a lot of the things you might initially think of as cons in any other movie are actually among the film's assets. Perhaps the biggest example of this is its simplicity. This is a very by-the-books home invasion thriller with an extremely simple plot. There's nothing fancy going on here, no crazy twists or complex backstories. It's just a couple being terrorized by masked intruders after a random 4 a.m. knock on the door. But the tension and suspense that comes from that simplicity is key. This isn't some sort of ghost story or a film with unbelievably pieced together motivations and coincidences. Instead, it's a scenario that feels like it could actually happen. It feels like you're watching your neighbors down the street or your friends, and it certainly makes you think twice about opening the door. The characters make some dumb decisions, as per usual with this franchise, but Kristen and James are easily the best protagonists of the series. They feel like real people with normal, everyday problems, who just happen to find themselves in this random, horrible situation. There's not a ton of characterization to them, but I think that really works in the film's favor. They're essentially blank canvases that you could project yourself onto, so you can imagine what you would be doing in the situation, and it just makes it all the more unsettling. The strangers themselves are also at a franchise best here, again because they don't really have any sort of defined personality. They remain an enigma throughout the film, and we never even see them without their masks on. There's a simple sense of realism to the bleak, random brutality of it all, that when combined with some really strong sound design, makes for a surprisingly effective horror movie. Alright, so that's my rankography of the Strangers franchise. 3 movies, 3 strangers, and still no Tamara. What does your ranking look like? I'd love to see some reasoning for your order, so be sure to post it in the comments below. Remember, I've already reviewed all 3 of these movies, so you could check those videos out if you want some more in-depth discussion of each, as well as my ratings, pros and cons, and even tailored film recommendations. And if you're interested in buying any of these movies, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy as in one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them, if you're in the market for any of these movies. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this rankography, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button, and if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this, as well as movie reviews. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.